Hello, everybody. Welcome to Crew Call Live. This is a special day for me today. I have a really good guest today. Not a good guest just because of great stories that I know he's going to tell, but he's a great guy. And he's a great friend of mine. And it's weird in this business, if you're lucky enough to get into this business long enough and you cross paths with people and you work with people and you're colleagues at first and you start working together and then you grow into you really have genuine friendships and it doesn't take long to bond with people. I spent 2 years on the road with this guy working sports, and we have outlasted those 2 years with our friendship, and our affection for each other has grown even more because, we genuinely just care about each other, and we both have been so um, happy to see each other's success after where we cross paths. Let me introduce my friend, Michael Dranes. Drainus. I've been saying your name wrong. 'Cause I always call you Drano, but
That's
I
fine.
guess in the proper Greek would be Drainus, correct?
Yeah, and they probably changed the spelling 100 years ago, and nobody told us, so who knows?
Do you get that? Was it always that? Can you always tell when somebody is calling because they say the name wrong?
Oh, I've had it pronounced 100 different ways. So if they get it close, I know they're talking about me, so I respond. So
Well, let me ask you. You know, I always like to start with the start with your first exposure to this industry. But I want to start earlier than that because I know this really wasn't where you started. You kind of wanted to do kind of radio. You actually were on the air. So let's start there. What did you what give me a little story about that beginning?
well, when I started college, the curriculum was radio, TV, and film. Back then, film was still really the king. Video was 3/4. I don't even think beta was here yet, so it was 1 inch and 3/4. But I did radio in college. I did some basketball games, and then I had a weekly 15-minute show that I would tape part of and whatever, pre-tape and then do interviews. So I liked radio, and right as I was graduating college, a guy that I had worked with at doing my internship at the CBS affiliate here in Nashville, he said, "Hey, I do a gig at this little radio station outside in Springfield, Tennessee." He goes, "They got a job opening. You want to come join?" And so I graduated one Saturday. The next Saturday was Christmas Eve, and that was my first day at WDBL AM/FM in Springfield, Tennessee. And it was country music mostly, but
No, you're kidding me.
yeah, shocking. No, but they did play on Sunday. Uh, they had a guy came in named JT, and he played a lot of R&B stuff, which was pretty cool. But for the most part, it was country, and I loved radio, but there was just no money in it. I was spending more money on gas going up there, and than I was making. So at the time,
Did you have a different name, Michael? Mike? What did
no,
you
no,
go
no,
by on the
no. You
radio?
just you just went by your name. You didn't. You, I didn't have any, stage name or anything like that. I was just happy to have a job. But it was so funny because it was such a small station that they told me, and I did Saturday, Sunday afternoons, and they told me that the advertising was huge at a little station, and there was a guy that worked at one of the local funeral homes, and he would just walk in, and he looked like an undertaker. He was tall, had the dark suit, the hat, and he would drop this little form and like $3 in front of me while I was doing my show, and I was supposed to stop whenever he did and read the obituary. And no matter if it was a upbeat song or whatever it was, I was supposed to read the obituary and then go on about my business. So it might have been, George Strait, Amarillo by morning, and then I'd finish up and say, and on a sad note, and then I'd read the obituary or whatever. So it was an experience. I wish I could have stayed with it. And when I retire, who knows? I may get back into it at a local station, just do it for free because
Oh, I mean, you must really relate to that Casey Kasem with the dog dying there when you ever hear that clip?
Yes, I have. I have heard that, but I enjoyed it. It was just at the time some other stuff started coming along, so I just sort of let it go and never really followed up on it. But to be honest with you, where I really got the bug to do television, and you got to be old to remember this, I was a guest on Romper Room, which was a TV show in the '60s, and it was a syndicated show. So every city would have their own version, but then there was a national Romper Room, sort of like Bozo was back then. And I went and did a guest stint. They had three girls and three guys on there, And I just remember walking into the TV studio and seeing those big scoops and thinking, man, I'd really like to do this someday. So that's really, I think, where I got the bug to be in communications and television because as a kid, we didn't have 15 games on every day when we were kids. We had one baseball game on Saturday, two football games on Sunday, and then maybe an NBA game on a Sunday afternoon, and that was it. And then Monday Night Football came along, and it was like changed everything. So once I started sort of getting into sports, I sort of put two and two together and realized what I wanted to do. And so I knew all along when I got to high school what I wanted to do, and and I pursued it. That was
So how
my.
did you make so how'd you make the pivot from the radio to the visual to the TV stuff?
There was a production company here in town that they did a lot. They were one of the two companies in town that had an uplink. The National Network was the other one. This company had an uplink, and they produced their own shows. So I got hired on there part time by the same guy that got me the gig at the radio station. He had now moved to this facility, and they were doing a ton of production. And I he got me on part time, and I just started learning. You floor managed, you ran tape, you did video, you ran camera, you did lights. I mean, you learned everything, and I think that's really sad now because I don't. There's not as many of those facilities around like there were when we were growing up, where you can learn every aspect of the business. And
Yeah, I had the same kind of opportunity. I had exposure to like local cable station where you
right,
have to be the jack of all. Like
yep,
hey, we need you to
yep,
do this today. Tomorrow you could be doing that. You know.
exactly. But it gave you a good, well-rounded, education on it, so to speak, and then that way you could go do whatever else you wanted to do. At that point, you were confident. Like one of my first freelance gigs, I was a floor manager, whatever, stage manager on a basketball game here at Vanderbilt, um, and that was one of the first, like maybe my first freelance gig. I think even before I went freelance full time, a friend of mine, a girl that was a camera person, she gave my name to somebody, and I got on with them. And then the next time they called me, I was doing camera. So I just did whatever they needed, and then moved into the next position.
Was there a moment as you were when did you feel like, oh man, I'm gonna make a career out of this. I'm gonna be a pro. This is gonna be my job. Or did you always
Well,
feel like, hey, I'm gonna find a way to make this my job?
early on, I knew, gosh, probably in high school, but definitely in college, I didn't want a 9 to 5 job. I didn't want to be in a cubicle or an office, or I was going to do everything I could to avoid that. Now, granted, I didn't want to be pouring concrete either. And don't get me wrong, I've done it in the summers and it's hard work, but I didn't want to do that my whole life. So, no offense to anybody that does that for a living, because I admire construction workers, believe me.
And they're all doing pretty well right now too, in
And
this
they're all doing
economy. So
exactly. But I when I did company, this place I was working, this production house in 1990, they sort of, I don't want to say they closed their doors, but they shut down a lot of the production. So I had to, I sort of went freelance, involuntarily. I mean, it was like, okay, I'll go freelance. The good thing was I was single. I had just bought a place, but I didn't need a lot of money to survive. So I wasn't forced to get a better job because I didn't have kids going to school and I wasn't married and I didn't have a mortgage and all that stuff. So I had a little more I was a little more free to do other things. And so once I started doing it, it was just the perfect timing. I mean, all this production was cranking up, and I had a friend here in Nashville who worked at a station, but sort of crewed regionally, because it was all regional stuff back then. The cable sports networks were coming along and all that stuff. So I just started picking up, stuff here and there. Now, at the time, I did a lot of entertainment stuff here in Nashville as well, though. I did award shows and I did a couple of music videos. And so there was a lot of entertainment, corporate stuff. Nashville was just sort of starting to get on the map of people. So I would do conventions, industrial stuff. There's a Nissan plant not too far from here. I used to go down there and freelance. So I just sort of did a little bit of everything. Back then you just wanted to fill up your date book and get as many dates as you could. I say,
I
okay,
still
I'm
feel
good.
that way.
I know, but I'm good for this month. But you physically would have the date book out and you'd write it down, you know.
Oh, I know. We had there's probably a box somewhere up there with a bunch of those old. We used to get them in the union used to send us a calendar every year, and most guys used to use that little calendar as their book.
Yep,
Now it's
yep.
every
And the
now
invoice,
everybody else is on this freaking thing. But
yeah, and
yeah, you know what?
you invoice 30 different people, you know.
Yeah, you sent me a list of some of the jobs, and I was like, well, I know so then I know your credits, man. 20 NASCARs, 20 NASCAR events.
20 Daytona 500.
Wait, 20, yeah, 20 Daytona 500s, 8 Super Bowls, Stanley Cup Finals, CMAs, and I want to talk about the CMA and the Olympics. So, like, all you've had a chance to really uh, do a lot of the different work, the sports and entertainment. What do you feel is a big difference? And what was it like with the first time you did like the CMAs and doing too? That's a big event now. It's
I
even
did.
bigger
I
than
did. Oh well, I did Live Aid a couple of times. That was a really big deal because I was like handheld on the stage with Neil Young and Mellencamp and all these people. Um,
wow. I
entertainment.
didn't know that. You did which live there was.
It was, I don't know. It was probably mid late '90s. One of them was in Louisville. The other one was in Noblesville, Indiana, outside Indianapolis. But I did two or three of those for the Nashville Network. And entertainment, I mean, I'll just be blunt. Entertainment I loved because it paid better. You got better rates for entertainment. But as far as I don't want to say difficulty, but the complexity of what you're doing, sports is much more complex because it's live and the situation changes every second. Like a pitch, one pitch is a ball. Okay, now the situation changes. There's a guy on second. Is he going to go? Same thing with hockey or football or whatever. You're constantly thinking of what's going on now. Okay, where are we in the game? What are they going to do this play? Blah blah blah. Whereas entertainment on a lot of the really bigger gigs, you blocked the shots. You knew what was coming up. Everything was timed out to the
Yeah,
second.
unfortunately you're right. The bigger entertainment shows, as much as they're beasts of what they are very well planned out.
Oh
And you
yeah, you
really
have
can't
to.
plan out live sports. So
Right. No, you
that
have
is a
to.
huge difference.
And even though like the CMA awards I would do, they'd be live, but they were scripted. And boy, if they got off script, it was chaos because those people are not used to that. Unlike us in sports, something happens, something changes, blah blah blah. We adjust and we go on. They're not. At least then they weren't so good at doing that. The producers and directors they would get totally lost because it wasn't on their script, and then trying to catch back up sometimes was a nightmare.
Yeah, but I think that's part of why the lure of sports is what it is, because you could see the challenge in it. I mean, when you watch what you're I mean, I think a lot of us, before you get into doing this, you got to kind of change, and we kind of talked about this before we started this, that you got to change the way you see sports. You got to pay more attention to how you watch
Right.
sports.
Right. The way that a ball game is cut or an event is cut. I told you earlier when I was first starting, a lot of people would tell me they'd say just go home and watch different games, watch different sports, watch different networks, watch the way, and you sort of knew who some of the directors were, so you knew okay, he cuts his game this way, he likes it wider than tighter, whatever the situation was, and so that sort of would put you ahead of the game, and then hopefully as you moved on up in the business, you would get to work with these guys, which luckily we did, all of us did. And so you sort of knew their style and it wasn't just coming at you out of left field. And, you learn their timing and all directors are different. Their timing's different. The way from the time they say ready to take two, one's longer, one's shorter, so you try to learn the sequence and how fast or slow they're cutting it or whatever. And that's just from watching. It's like anything. You do your homework and, hopefully you're ready when you get the chance. And if you work hard and you're halfway good at what you do, eventually you're going to get the call because somebody's going to be sick, somebody's going to have a death in the family. My dog ate my homework, whatever. I had a flat
Yeah,
tire.
you got to be available. Be
Yeah,
available to
but
fill
that's
in
what
and
I'm
make
saying.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so when you do, they may be putting you in a scenario that, hey, I've never done this camera before, but I'll do it. I know enough about it just from watching the other guys. I can handle this. So
Yeah. But I also I want to talk about like you kind of benefited or not benefited, but took advantage of that. You lived in an area where at the right time, there was growth. There was growth
Oh
in
yeah.
sports.
Oh yeah.
There was growth in production, and but now, which is kind of funny, that you could probably, if you had taken that path because you were already working and established in the market, you don't do a lot of local work anymore, do you? You're on the road more now, right?
Yeah, I do a few hockey games. I'm not home on the weekends to do Titans, so it's funny. CBS still calls me because we were on the first cruise that ever did games here back in '98 when the Titans Oilers played at Vanderbilt one year. Um, so yeah, the timing was perfect because as the '90s, I was in the early '90s as it started coming along. Same thing with the entertainment too. I mean, the national network was booming, CMT was booming, there was stuff going on everywhere. So you were just trying to get your name out to as many people as you could, and stay busy. But I did some of my work here. I did some on the road back then, but more so now for the last 15 years or so, 20 maybe. It's been, I would say, 75, 80% on the road, maybe even more. Um,
What was the first thing that lured you on the road? Was it NASCAR? Was that the first package that you were like, hey, we're going to give you? Because that's a big event package anyway, right?
Yeah, well, and that's the other thing. About the time I was starting to do NASCAR is when it was going straight up, early '90s, late '80s, early '90s. After days of
You were
thunder,
on it before Fox, right?
huh?
You were doing it before Fox
Oh
took
yeah,
over with their.
I was doing it with the National Network and TBS back then. But you got to remember back then in those days, sort of like it's become now, NASCAR was on a different network every weekend. ABC had it one week, CBS had Talladega and Daytona, TNN had Rockingham and Dover. Uh, Turner would do Charlotte and then whatever Pocono or something. So there were several networks. So you would work a couple of weeks, then be off because it wasn't your network. And ESPN, obviously, they were doing more than anybody then. So it was just good timing that NASCAR was the first one I sort of started going out on the road and doing, and then sort of scattered in there at the same time. Right after I started freelancing in August of '91, I went out on the road with Reba McEntire doing her big screens and a stage show and stuff. And I did that for about 6 months. The tour bus, the whole 9 yards.
Oh
And it
wait,
was
a U.S. tour or
no, it was her. It was her tour. It was her U.S. tour.
but domestic, not far. You didn't have
Yeah,
to
yeah,
go.
yeah.
You didn't go
Domestic,
overseas with
domestic.
her, right?
What they started doing when country, and again, country music was starting to take it. All this stuff was happening at the same time. The Garth Brooks and Alan Jacksons and all that was all starting to take off too. So country was becoming really pop, but it's what became they called country, whatever, and it was taking off. So I went out on the road with her for a company called IMAG out of Scottsdale, Arizona, and we did the screen. We hung the screens. We put the projectors up, which weighed 1,000 pounds, and we put the cameras out. There was all fly pack stuff. I started that in August of '91, and right about that time is when all these art acts, at least the country acts, were starting to do like weekend gigs. So you'd leave Thursday, middle of the day or evening, drive to wherever you do shows Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, wherever, Salisbury, Maryland, Binghamton, New York, Hershey, Pennsylvania. And then you get on the bus Sunday night after the show and drive back, and you're back Monday afternoon. So I did that for about 6 months, and I sort of had to make a decision at the end of that year. Am I going to stay with this and do this, or do I want to pursue the and fortunately, the NASCAR thing fell right in my lap towards the end of '91, and so I decided to go that route. Which now that I look back, it was the right route. But yeah, I
When
did.
you took it, did you think there? Did you think so? You when you took it, you were taking it for what package? Who was it with?
It was with, excuse me, it was with the National Network.
So
One
at
of
that point, were you thinking that they were going to have it for a look? Because those guys have been. I know that some of the guys that you work with have been doing it for years, and then came on to back to join Fox. But when you joined that group, were those guys thinking it was going to ever go to Fox, or that it was ever going to leave the Nashville
No,
network?
no, because back then, like I said, because it was a different network doing almost every weekend, a lot of the guys that came out and did the racing, especially for the National Network, well, they also did the Grand Ole Opry and the award shows, and they did a lot of music stuff too. But they were employees of the National Network, so we just did the racing, and then they actually started getting more racing at that time because Diamond P Sports used to produce for the National Network, and then National Network sort of started getting a lot of their production stuff. So they were actually growing, which was another reason why I wanted to go over there. And the girl that became the basically the executive producer for motorsports. I had known her for a while and I had done some work with her. And when she moved here to Nashville, I was one of the first calls, and she said, "Hey, you want to come be a tape producer, associate producer with us?" And I said, "Sure." And so but that was sort of a trial by fire as
Oh, so
well.
you weren't even doing camera at that point?
No, when I got into the production side on racing, I actually was a tape producer and became a pit producer, and I did that for probably 8 9 years. So what happened
Oh,
was, is
really? I didn't know that. So you were working in the pits, and then so that you had to know. So you were the guy that had to really pay attention to the storylines, what was going on in each pit,
yeah,
and coordinating with the producer. What was
yep.
that? Talk about that. How that workflow was different, and how that knowing that helped you as a camera guy.
Well, it was funny because at the time I still did camera work on everything else. I was still doing other sports and entertainment, but for the racing thing, I was a production person. So, I understood, at least to a degree, I understood what the cameramen were doing and where they needed to be. And so I'd be we had 3 pit reporters back then, and they all had camera guys with them. And so, yeah, you sort of had to logistically figure out where this guy needs to be and who needs to be in victory lane at the end or whatever. Unfortunately, I understood the logistics of it, I guess, a little bit better. I don't know, maybe because I had been a camera guy, or I was. So I did that for, like I said, 8 or 9 years, and it was fun. It was, got to go to Japan a couple times and do races over there, and and then the first year that Fox and NBC got NASCAR, I sort of had to decide, okay, am I going to pursue the production end, or do I just want to go over and be a camera guy? And so I did a handful of races for NBC. I pit produced that first year, but I could sort of see the writing on the wall, and the politics. I didn't want to play the politics. That wasn't me, And I mean, I could have maybe and done something, but I said, you know what? I'll just do camera. And so when Fox got the contract, I'd already done, NFL with them, and they knew who I was. So, but honestly, I had not really shot a lot of racing when I started doing that. I had been doing racing for a long time, but as far as shooting it, I'd only shot a few races. But obviously, I knew how it was cut because I sat right behind the director and producer. So it wasn't
So what was that like for you on that first race then? So like, I mean, you knew the operation, you knew the subject matter,
right.
but you just didn't have as much experience as you was liked,
And then let me tell you
and you
something.
kind of jumped.
Following a race car is not easy. I know following a golf ball isn't either, but following a race car and keeping it in focus and keeping it centered in the frame, especially if it's a windy day and they're on the backstretch a half mile away, it's not an easy thing to do. So one of the things I used to do occasionally while I was still pit producing, I'd go up during lunch breaks and I'd just play around with the cameras, just shoot the practices and stuff like that, because they weren't on the air back then. They weren't television shows. They were just crash watches, so that if somebody crashed, you had a documentation of it. So I would go up and do that. And then the first year
I
that
just want to stop there for a second because I want people who are watching this to recognize like that is key. If you have a chance to take advantage of an opportunity to get on camera or work with equipment that's
right,
not being used because it's the early stages, or you get a chance to practice on it because you're an intern or you're
yep.
access and you've asked for permission, you're not breaking any union rules, and wherever you are, you're just doing it the right way. Most people, I'm sure the guy that you were doing that one was very welcoming to let you jump on and learn, right?
Without a doubt. I mean, they used to, because a lot of them, they didn't want to shoot the crash watches. They'd been up there all day already, but we didn't televise every show back then either. So, but yeah, they were all willing to help you and show you things. And it was just a matter of getting your timing down on panning, because you're panning a long time, and then you're panning right, and then you're going straight a long time, then you're panning again. And so it's a very repetitive thing, but you got to sort of get your timing down, and you got to learn how to be smooth with that and keep that car in frame. I've had people say, "Oh, anybody can do that," and I remember one guy. I said, "Okay, come up here," and
I kind of wonder because I've had a chance to do racing a few times. I did CBS when they had that SRX
right,
racing thing where
right,
we did a couple of dirt tracks, but it was smaller tracks, smaller
right,
cars, not
right.
anywhere near the level of NASCAR and anything else.
But it's still, but you still got to keep. I even on a short. Sometimes the short tracks are more challenging because you're moving faster and you're just doing it over and over, and it's much
Yeah, I
quicker as
I will
opposed to the long pans.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, I mean, when you were on that, because I was doing actually, I did a handhold on one, and then I did another corner turn camera on another. But
Right.
when you have that, when you're on those big tracks and you're on a car, and then you have to find another car, how are you knowing how to find that car fast enough? Because they're all still going around. It's not like he's stopping for
Right.
you.
Right. Well, that's the
Like,
thing about racing on the bigger tracks is that you're shooting something in turn three, but there may be a pass happening in turn one, or a car's blowing a tire or an engine or whatever. Back in the day when I started, each cameraman had a spotter with them. So they could help you find these guys. They were standing right next to you and they could point, hey, they're looking for the 18 car. Okay, he's in turn one. They could point. As the years went on, they sort of started getting rid of the spotters. Now you still have a chief spotter who's talking to everybody, but basically now a lot of the times what we're doing on our love channel, our separate channel, is the other camera guys are telling you where guys are. That's how we sort of spot it out now. And plus,
oh, that's interesting. That's the evolution of how it works. So
yeah.
it was a certain way, and then over the years it just progressed to make it. Does that make it better now? Does having the capability of the love
Uh,
channel?
well, I mean, it took people out. Most of the guys that did it were retired guys that just loved racing and they wanted to be at the track. So it's definitely made you more aware. Like if I'm doing, like when I do racing, I do the lead. I stay with the lead the whole time. So if there's a set of green flag pit stops, they'll cycle around because like the leader may come in, then when he comes back out, he's not the leader until all those other guys pit. So a lot of times I'm on the guy that's technically the leader, but we know that this other car is going to be the leader once these guys pit. So I'm following the leader, but I'm sort of watching where the other guy is, and the other camera guys are keeping me up to date on where that guy is. So that when my guy pits, I can just go right to the new guy. I'm not looking. I'm not searching all over the track for it. So, but the more eyes you can have, the better in racing. I mean, the bigger the track, like a Talladega and Daytona, those are 2.5 mile tracks. They're huge. So a guy can be a half mile away from the other guy. And when we're on the roof, we're a half mile from the back stretch. So you're zooming all the way in a half mile away and following a car. So it definitely helps to have more eyeballs up there and in the corners as well, helping you out.
Now let's talk a little about equipment then, because obviously if we're talking big tracks, we're talking big lenses too. Now, I mean, back in the day, what you were probably shooting with a 55 and an extender. Now,
Yeah, I think, and it was black and white then too, which in racing doesn't help because you know the colors of cars, but if it's black and white, you can't tell the color of the car. So yeah, so it was definitely more of a challenge back then. Now there weren't as many cameras on the shows back then, so you were sort of your role was a little more locked in. You couldn't really freelance as much as you can now because you can sort of let other guys cover you in a certain situation. But it was a challenge because just the zooming and focusing and the stuff was a little more crass back then. It wasn't as fine tuned. So getting in there and being focused when they cut to you or they're coming out of the turn in a group or whatever was it was a little more challenging. Sometimes though, there's times I wish we had those old cameras because they were much easier to operate. So
some of them, some
some of them,
do you tweak a lot of do you tweak your viewfinder? Are you very particular with the pan? Because I remember you and I you they had they tested some pan heads a couple of times, and you weren't happy with some of the pan heads for racing because they have to be a certain way.
well,
I mean, what is
you need a lot of drag. I mean, the thing about racing is you're outside, so if it's a really hot day, I don't care how far you crank the drag down, that oil is going to get warmer, and it's not going. You want resistance when you're doing racing because the worst thing, and you probably see it on some racing if you watch, if you see a camera that's real shaky or whatever, I'd be willing to bet they don't have the drags real tight, and so the wind or just the panning and tilting that you do is going to cause it to it's going to cause it to sort of shake around because you need that steadiness of a lot of panhead drag to keep it in sort of one spot as you're panning it or whatever. You're not having to pull it up or down to keep it level. You just sort of are panning to the right, then you're panning to the left. You want to keep it smooth. And, I know guys that run so much drag in their camera, you walk up to it and grab it and you think it's locked. I mean, that's how much drag they run in their cameras. And I run a lot, and I do that for football because I'm just more comfortable having a lot more drag on my camera.
Well, I'm glad you brought up football because that's where we met on football. That was
Okay.
our crew back in the day. Gibby, Winnie.
Yep.
Oh my God,
Micro
Mike
twos.
Ratuz. I
And we,
mean, the memories we had. I mean, this was you and Ratuz on doing the low end zones. This was
yep.
Wembley Stadium. We had a wonderful, great time in London.
Yep.
Um, that was in the tube. Oh, do you not see that, or do you see it?
I'm not seeing any. I'm seeing
Oh,
black.
what the? Oh, Jesus Christ! What the hell's not going on?
Easy. It's a family show.
Gee, did it go to black on me? Well, how does that happen?
I don't know. You're running the show, Hardy.
Yeah, oh, man.
You
It
changed
was.
camera angles though. That was good.
You did see an image at one point.
I just saw you change camera angles. You
Oh,
cut.
okay. Now you see it.
Oh, okay. All right. All right.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
All
saying that
right.
was us at Wembley.
Now that's us at Wembley.
Yeah, that was. So now you see the photo. Okay, see
There
that
we
was our
go.
crew.
There
Yeah,
we
that
go.
that was
That's
the
us.
original crew. That was us.
Yep. That was the
That was
B
the
show.
first game. That was us. This was the thing that I remember during that game. Remember they had the advertising there with the football
Yep.
guys.
Yep. And the soccer guys. Yeah.
That was you on the train. We this
That.
one.
Yeah. That's a
No,
classic.
we'll pass that one. That was
No. No. No.
that
No.
was
No.
our
Go back.
crew.
Go back.
Yeah, yeah. No, well, I mean, let's talk a little about. I mean, those years were so much fun, man. We were together. That was during the Fox B show, and that was just fun. I mean, I think it was at a time like we had Michael Frank, and we ended up. I think that had to be your first. Was it your first Super Bowl too? That one
Arizona.
in Arizona.
Yeah. The one,
Yeah, yeah,
The Tyree catch on the helmet. Yeah. That was my
yeah.
first one. Yes.
Yeah, because I remember like we were on the Fox B show, and then the way the director Artie Kepner, who did that Super Bowl, was that he had it. He used Michael as a sub director for some of the cameras, and we were those extra cameras to do like
Right.
we
Right.
had
Right.
different assignments and other. Because Artie smartly was like, I want to do my show and let the add-on
Yep.
be the add-on. When I need it,
Yep.
I'm going to
Exactly.
go to it, and I like that system. It worked really well. It allowed us to keep our thing going, and we I think we did add something to that broadcast, but that was your first. You went on to then, like I said, we were on the B show. Now you are on the Fox A show, and you've done how many Super Bowls with Russo now? Because you're on his show.
6 or 7. At least 6, maybe 7, because we had 2 within 3 years recently because of when the new contract started. Fox was, I think, second in the rotation, so we did one in Arizona, and then we turned around this past year and did the one in New Orleans, and they were only 2 years apart. So I think that was 7 with Russo, 6 or 7, something like
Well,
that.
you're camera 1 or 3 on the show.
Camera 1. Yep.
Camera 1. So like
Left
for people who
25
don't know football, explain a little bit about how the layout goes up top for the cameras.
Well, pretty much, and I'm assuming it's this way for every at least network show for NFL. You've got 3 cameras across the top, as we say. Usually they're on the mid level, club level, whatever. Left 25, 50, and right 25. And as the ball moves down from one end to the other, each respective camera becomes the play-by-play or the camera you see right before they snap the ball, if it's not the sky cam.
And the
So
director will normally say 1 is game, 2 is
yep,
game,
yep.
3 is game. Whoever
Oh,
it is, when he says 1 is game, you're now the game camera. That
right.
means the other 2 cameras have to change assignments, right?
Correct. And the way we do it now with Rich Russo is, if he's in a replay or he's doing something else, we pretty much know. We'll go, okay, two's game, and he'll go, two's game. So everybody knows we're on the same page there. Then I start going to look for an ISO, or Dave Thrower on camera 3, he's looking for an ISO. So yeah, your assignment changes as the ball moves down the field. And I think that's pretty much how everybody does it. I mean, I don't think there's anybody that does it any extreme differently than that. So, and I've always been the left 25. I'm camera 1 on football. I'm camera 1 on racing. So makes it easy for me not to forget what I'm doing. So,
Oh, that's pretty good. You have the common number on both gigs for the majority of the year. That's pretty good.
yeah,
That's a-
it keeps it simple for me. I don't have to, if I go do hockey or if I go do another show somewhere and they put me on another number, it really confuses me sometimes.
Yeah, well, we're all creatures of habit. I can see how that. I get it sometimes too because during the week I do the View and I'm camera four on that, so I hear four a lot. I hear four a lot.
Right,
So
right,
when I'm not that, then all of a sudden it'll throw me off a little bit, and I hear it and I'm
right,
like, oh jeez, oh that's me. Yeah. But then you quickly wake up and do stuff like that. So
right.
what is your football schedule like on the A show? Like, so you're traveling in. So you guys have what's your responsibilities? You build in all the cameras. You're doing the booth. What are your extras?
Well, we'll leave tomorrow to go to Dallas. We have the Eagles in Dallas this weekend, and then we'll have a set day. All day Saturday will be our set day. I'm usually responsible for with Gibby, and some of the field guys will come up and help us. Mario, Andy, Buzz, Keith, all those guys. They come up and help us build all the up cameras. We have three across, 1, 2, and 3. We have a high end zone 4. We have cameras 8 and 10, which are slashes in the corners. And then we have a camera 40, which is a 4K, which is in the other end zone. So we'll set all those, and then I do the clock cams and the beauty shot, the big wide shot that they put the graphics over. So that's pretty much my responsibility on Saturdays, and um, the other guys build the field and the carts and the low end zone cameras. And then you got guys building pylon cams. You've got the POV cameras that go in the coaches' booths, and Andy and Keith will do those. Used to be Nelson. So everybody's sort of got their assignments, and you try to get it all done and working, and then probably around 6 o'clock in the evening, you do a fax and make sure everything's working, and you check out all the high speed cameras, the Supermos, and the lighting in the booth, and Dave Thrower does the booth with Ben Altop and Matt Pascal, and they put all that together. And Vinny Scafidi does the Skycam, also does the Robo in the booth, so he's down there a lot too. So everybody's got their function and their role, and you sort of used to doing it. So when you get there, most of the cameras have been delivered to their positions, so you just got to go around and build them and plug them in and hope that everything's working in that building that weekend.
So now you've been with Russo for a long time, and you don't use a lot of locals, do you, on that show?
Actually, we do. We do. Let's see, the two slashes and the two high end zones are locals. Um, so we have 4 locals on the show every week.
Oh, so a camera meeting you bring in different guys for camera meetings all the time. Then I didn't know.
Yeah.
I thought. Oh, that's good. I didn't know you still have locals. A lot of the H like I don't think I think the CBS A show travels everything the whole
Yeah,
crew.
and even like this Thursday night show that's going on right
Yeah.
behind you, I think they use one local, and he's either doing the all 20. I think he does the all 22, or he does. I think he
Yeah,
does the
that's
all
what. Yeah, I
22.
think ESPN does the same thing for Monday night. They travel. They
Yeah,
take the local for
everybody.
the all 22.
Yep, everybody travels except maybe one guy, and so. But yeah, we use 4 locals on our show.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, does that add more camera? Does he do that so he can travel and add more? Because you do have a different complement of what are the specialty cameras on that? You have Tony's doing like a Exmo, Super
Like a
Exmo,
low
right?
boy Exmo, yeah. A lot of low, and he's high speed. He's super mo. Mario Zecca does one of the far cart. He does the high speed camera on that and gets a lot of those great shots of guys moaning, or that slow motion shot of a guy looking up and shaking his head, and he gets all those shots. He's the best at that stuff. So and then we've got what do we got? Another handheld that's a super mo. One of the low end zones is, or both low end zones are super mo's, I think. I'm not even sure. Um, but we don't have a reverse 50. We don't have 2 low end zone cameras in each end zone. We just have one in each end zone.
Do you
Uh,
have a double cart?
we have a
Is a
double
double
card
cart
on the
both
far
sides?
side, double card on the far side, and a single card on the near side.
Oh, so
But
he
we
just has
also have
a
both.
single cart on 5. Oh, okay.
But then we have the Steadicam, Phil Jakes. We have a Crash on the Megalodon. I don't know what the technical name is. I call it the Megalodon. Uh,
Oh, that's the shot. The megalodon is
where
that
the
shallow depth of
where the
shot. The shallow
focus
depth of
falls
field.
out, where the focus falls off, in the background and
Yeah,
stuff.
I mean, to me, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love technology is all about, these are all tools. Like where I'm in my garage, tons of tools here that I use to do, like I got a freaking table I'm supposed to be putting together soon for my wife, but all those things are tools that you can use and or use. And but I also can from experience know that tools can be overused, too.
Oh,
So there's a balance that you have to find
sure.
with all those kind of things. I like the look of it. I just think that for the longest time it was like the gaming industry was trying to mimic the sports. And I feel like the roles are reversed now. We're trying to mimic the gaming look of it because the Skycam look is kind of the look that derived from the gaming thing, but became a reality. But now it's like we're trying to do too much more of the gaming stuff.
If you watch the altcast for the Thursday night show going on behind you, if you look at the altcast, which I saw on NFL Network because they replay it, the whole game is shot from the upper sky cam because they have two of them. And each player has a number, it has a little number, and it looks exactly like a video game. And that's what they want it to look like. But that's what that altcast is for the Thursday night show. If you have it, I don't know if you have the altcast, but put it up and you'll see what I'm talking about. Um,
Yeah, well, I got this. I mean, I don't know if that
I've
can.
got one of those. I still got one of those. Yes, sir. That's the best. Mattel, man. I still got
Yeah,
mine.
right. Yeah, this thing. Is the batteries in it? No, no batteries in this bad
Yeah,
boy.
that it's simple. It was just it was so much fun though as a kid. It was like that was a
Oh
good
yeah, oh
feeling,
yeah,
man.
I mean, I'm definitely showing my age on this thing, but like I had to have this thing, and keep this thing forever. So,
Just
but whatever. But that's the
go hook up your Techno Bowl, and then we'll know how old you are. Go hook that up
yeah.
with Bo
I,
Jackson running everywhere.
Oh yeah, I was more. I loved the Atari 2600, the Space
Yeah.
Invaders. You had if you double clicked the button in the on and turned it on, you had double. You would be able to shoot double buttons. There was so
Oh
much
yeah.
stupid stuff as a kid. You remember with all that stuff, but
Well, I mean, because that was the beginning of all that stuff. So, but now, yeah, that altcast on Thursday night is nothing but it looks just like you're looking at a video game. That's exactly
yeah.
what it looks like. The whole thing.
I mean, but you've seen. I think. Well, I mean, football now is seeing a big impact on technology on its productions, but I feel like your work through the time of NASCAR has seen a big like NASCAR now the
Oh,
technology of in-car cameras and I mean there's cameras everywhere on in the guys' helmets. I mean,
let me tell you something. The first in-car cameras, at least for NASCAR, and I'm assuming they were like this for other motorsports, was a full-size handheld Ikegami. That was an in-car camera. That added 30 pounds to the weight of that car. So I mean, you talking about installing that thing? It took a half day to install that in the car. So yeah, the technology they've seen, the cameras you can put in the track, the cameras you can put at any position on that
oh
car.
yeah, I forgot about track cameras. There's like embedded into the
Yeah,
asphalt. They're
yep,
put
yep. And they've got a little clear piece of plexiglass, and it pushes down when the car goes over, then it pops back up. Um, but yeah, the technology for that, and then the RF and the drones and the choppers and all that stuff, um, is made racing. It's a lot more fun to watch. Now, if you don't like racing, you don't like racing. But as far as that part of it goes, but again, I think sometimes we get a little too hung up on that and we miss showing the racing. You know what I mean? I mean, to me as a race fan, and I grew up a race fan going to races, you want to see side by side racing. I don't care if it's for 80th place. You want to see two guys battling it out, going at it. So, um, I, you know, I don't want to get too much into this, but I
well,
think
are we gonna have? I'd love to have a real cover because I think the NASCAR is a, a a a a really interesting sport. That's because now you see that it's F1 is really competing hard now because like
oh
F1
yeah,
is worldwide and huge.
right, 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 and they've got the money and they've got the technology. And I mean, those cars are. I mean, literally, those cars are. I don't know how many million. The technology alone on those cars is worth millions. So, um, yeah, racing is something you can have fun with and be very innovative with because tracks are different size, cars are going different speed. Indy car is different than a stock car, and a F1 car is different than an Indy car. So you've got a lot more opportunity there to do things and be different about it, or try to be different about it, because of the situation and the environment and where they run and stuff. So, unlike a football field, well, every football field's the same size. Every basketball court is the same size. Every hockey rink. So you can only do so much because it's not going to change. It's not like the corners are going to get bigger or the rink's going to get wider or anything like that. But with racing, you go to one track. Well, hey, let's try this camera because we've got room to do it here. But you go to another track and now we don't have room to do that here. So you can
Well,
experiment a little more.
I think with the like the spectacle of sport is what the events that happen within sports that make them and NASCAR has always done an amazing job of having each one of their races is a big spectacle of they're huge numbers that come. I mean,
Right.
you're talking. I mean, arena sports that you were mentioning are 20,000, 15 to 20, 30,000 max. You
Right.
know, what the smallest NASCAR is? What are you talking?
I mean, as far as seating goes, probably the smallest ones are still going to be 40 or 50,000. So,
And
and those
the biggest one, I mean, what is NASCAR? I mean, the big you've been to the biggest races on the biggest days.
seating,
I
well, as
mean,
far as seating goes, I don't know if Daytona holds more than Talladega, but they would be probably in Indianapolis. Obviously, that's a whole nother. They're in their own category. Indianapolis. I think it's got 240,000 seats alone, plus all the people. Now Bristol, which is only a half-mile racetrack, has 160,000 seats. So
160,000. What's the
100.
track? What is it like getting out of there when
Well,
you strike after you
it
struck?
used to be they don't put 160,000 in there anymore like they used to, but when they did, it was the night race in August, and I mean, it was like going to something in the Roman Colosseum back in the day. I mean, it was a spectacle because it was full of people, and and back then you had the people with cameras and flash pods, and it was it was a neat atmosphere back then, and yeah, you would strike for 3 hours and leave and get about a half mile down the road and still catch traffic. So some of these racetracks, they got one road in, one road out, and so I mean, unfortunately, we don't have the crowds we used to for NASCAR, but some of them you go to, you still are going to catch some traffic, but they're all pretty good size as far as seating.
Well, I think NASCAR has an opportunity to still grow if they in this streaming world, and the streaming world is all about content, right? And
Yep.
there's so much content that is derived out of NASCAR with their that you don't see.
Right.
The confrontations with the pit crews, the drivers, the community. They do a good job of showing a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
what's happening during the races and everything else. But there's a lot there happening all day long, all the
Right.
time.
There's stuff going on all day, and there's things you don't see, like just within one team on the radio chatter talking to their driver or the other driver, and then that crew chief talking to another crew chief. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of aspects going on at one time in a race, in any race, IndyCar, F1. It's strategy. You're trying to look ahead, think ahead, and that's what you try to do with TV. Is okay. What are they gonna do? Are they gonna take two tires or four? Are they going to stop it all? Blah, blah, blah. That's what you're trying to tell the story in racing, especially. And if it's a compelling story, somebody, maybe they just lost a parent or, the crew chief resigned that week or, whatever the case, you've got a storyline you're trying to follow and stay with. And hopefully it plays out. A lot of times it doesn't. It just fizzes out middle of the race. And now you go to something else. So,
I
but
mean, when I think storyline for sure, the first one I think about it in Daytona is that first Fox race, right? What was that? You were on it.
yeah,
That's the Dale, right? Dale
that
Earnhardt.
was the Dale Earnhardt. Yeah, that was just a, I don't know, freaky thing that happened. I mean, the wreck itself, when you look at a lot of other wrecks similar to that, you would say, okay, he got bruised up a little, whatever. So it was a real weird thing, and Fox was having to cover it live, not knowing that he had passed away when they went off the air. They knew it was bad, but they didn't know he had already been pronounced dead. So that's a whole different thing. Now you're covering something that's very personal and tragic, and
What did
it
you
ain't.
guys? When did you guys know? What did you guys know? When did you know?
Oh
Like you're on.
I for a lot of us, they knew because when Ken Schrader stopped to go over there and look in the car, you could see his reaction when he looked up at the emergency workers that you knew it wasn't good. And there
Wait,
was no.
explain that. Who's Ken Trade? Who's that? Who you
Schrader was
talking?
he was one of the other race car drivers, good friend of Earnhardt's, similar in age, maybe not, maybe a few years younger, but he was one of the first ones to get over to him after it happened because it was on the last lap. So on the cool down lap, Schrader pulled over and pulled off and walked over to the car, or ran over to the car and looked in. And when he looked in, about that time the emergency workers were pulling up in the other vehicles, service vehicles and stuff, he sort of turned to them. I don't think he shook his head, but you could just tell by the look in his face it wasn't good.
But
So
that didn't make air. That was stuff that you guys were
no,
shooting.
no, you saw him go over and look, but you can't, as the announcers are talking, they can't assume anything. They can't even go, well, it doesn't look good. Ken Schrader, just sort of nodded his head, and you can't say anything like that. You've got to just say, hey, we'll update you as soon as we can. We hope for the best. We hope he's okay. That's all you can do. But it wasn't long after that, because the hospital's right down the street, that they pronounced him dead. And so, but everybody, when that ambulance pulled out of the track, everybody pretty much, they knew it was really bad. So,
What does that do to what? How does that change an event like, especially when
oh,
this there's a celebration that has to happen? Somebody's won.
well, that was the thing. Um, it was Michael Waltrip who drove for Dale Earnhardt Incorporated, and so he's in there
Right. That
trying
was
to.
they were paired up, right? That was his they
Well,
were
he
his
was blocking for Michael and Dale Jr., who were running in front of him. Dale was sort of blocking the other guys. In other words, either his son or one of his cars was going to win it. And so, Michael's in victory lane, but you haven't got any word yet on how's Dale, how's he doing. The video of it, you just show Michael just worried, sick, as he should be, and anybody would be. And he's like, I hope Dale's okay. I hope. And so you're celebrating, but you're not really celebrating, because you sort of got this dark cloud hanging over you. And it was the same even when we got to the next race in Rockingham. It was just a whole. I mean, like, even in the crowd, you could just sense this sense of loss. I mean, it was like, our Babe Ruth had passed away. Well, I don't want to say that, all due respect to Richard Petty, but at the time he was the Babe Ruth of racing. So,
well,
he
yeah,
was
Richard
gone
Petty.
now.
I mean, even a guy like me knows Richard Petty, man.
Richard Petty's the
A guy
king.
who mastered the marketing of a look.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, a cowboy hat and sunglasses. Yeah. So anyway, it took a few weeks before you even really sort of got back to any kind of normal, whether it was us covering it or the fans or the interviews with people around it. Everybody was sort of walking softly at that point, because
So you felt like there was an impact on production, huh? It had that type of an effect because
yeah,
it
definitely.
rippled through the sport.
Yeah, I mean, definitely your approach after that race for the next few weeks was totally different. I mean, I did racing back when a lot of guys were, when Davey Allison got killed, and when Adam Petty, who was a friend of mine, and his dad, when Adam got killed and stuff like that. And it was a horrible time for racing. And you
Wait,
know
you mean you actually were working a race and you knew the driver because of you had a friendship with him and he passed while you were
well,
working
now
a race?
the Adam Petty, that was a race in New Hampshire. I wasn't there when that happened, but I was there for a couple of other ones. Also, in some of the lower divisions, I was there when people got killed. And it's just a horrible thing. It's an absolutely horrible thing. And the good part that comes out of this, if there's any, with Dale Earnhardt's wreck, was that when that was what sort of pushed them to develop the safer barrier, the soft wall, and the Hans device, the thing you put around your neck and your head. And they really accredit both of those things with saving so many lives since his death. And it was all because of his death that they started doing more research, and there was more technology, and they
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the
something good.
thing. I mean, sports shouldn't be. I mean, it is. There are sports that are dangerous, what they call the extreme sports, but I wouldn't have thought NASCAR would be qualifying as an extreme sport. I mean, racing is race. Well, rubbing is racing, but racing is racing. You know what I'm saying?
But you're
But
going 200 miles an hour, and then you hit a hard concrete wall, and you ain't going 200 miles an hour. That's pretty extreme. And so that's, people, it's still hard for people to get a sense of how fast these cars go. I always tell people, if you want to come to a race, come to one of the big Daytona or Talladega, stand down there on pit road when they come by under green, and the ground literally rumbles. And you've got these, however much these cars weigh, a couple thousand pounds, um, coming down through there at 200 miles an hour in a group. And yeah, it's a dangerous sport. It is. It's funny now because a lot of the drivers that are coming up in this sport, they learn on simulators. They don't go to the local short track on Saturday night and race. And a lot of them will have a big bad wreck, and it sort of shocks them because they don't really realize, because they never had a wreck. They never raced in these short tracks, and if they did, they were small wrecks. But you have a big one. I remember Kyle Larson at Daytona when he was running in the Xfinity series. He had just a horrific wreck. It looked like you thought he had to be dead. And he just sort of got out and walked away and sort of looked back at it and sort of shrugged his shoulders and went on. It's like he didn't think twice about it, that they
Well,
walk.
that's a guy who's trusting in the technology and the sport
Yep.
and his crew.
Yep.
I mean, that's where the NASCAR doesn't present itself as much of a team sport, but there is the
But it's
driver
all
is
but it's all about team, Hardy. I mean, that's everything you do is about that team. Whether it's changing the tires and not getting the lug nuts on, not having enough air pressure in the tire, we put the wrong shocks in, we gave it too much wedge, not enough. Now the car's loose in the corner. He spun or blew a tire and wrecked because of that. So yeah, there's a lot of responsibility for everybody on that team, even the guy putting the fuel in. If the
Well,
guy
it's
don't get
funny
all the
because the
fuel.
way you explain it now, I can see more of the similarities between the NASCAR and football. Like the quarterback is the leader, the driver is the quarterback. There's
Yep.
got to be the
Yep.
guy. There is some similarities to those things, and maybe that's why your talents bode very well to both of those sports. Like you have that way of that thing that we kind of talked earlier about is the understanding of these sports very well. You know what I mean? So that
Right.
allows you to think not just as the camera guy tilting and panning and zooming and focusing,
Right.
but
Right.
more
Right.
of the
No,
game.
there's certain situations, especially like in a football game or a race, where something will happen, and in your mind you go, "Okay, I need to start looking for this now because with that happening, this could happen." Whereas before I wasn't thinking about this. Now I'm thinking about this because of that. You know what I mean? So, yeah, a lot of it is you obviously got to know what the sport is, and but you got to know a little more than that. You got to know the intricacies of the relationships or whatever. Um, between the players and the coaches and whoever. So
So the other thing that I wanted to that popped up on the in my head that when you sent me your little note on some of your career highlights was an Olympics. What Olympics did you do? Which one was that? What was that
Atlanta,
experience? I've never had
Atlanta,
a chance to do one.
96,
Which one?
96 Atlanta. Yes. As a matter of fact, the guy I was working with is a guy, Frank Belmonte. I think he was up from your area. He used to have a production company up there. He did
Yeah,
a
I
lot.
think Belmonte Productions or something.
He
I
did
think.
boxing and he did all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah. He was our producer, director. I guess he was directing, but we did the marathons and we did the race walking, that real fast power race walking stuff. And here's a perfect example. So we're doing these things and we're doing them at 5 in the morning and they're going back to these small little countries or whatever. And I don't remember what country it was, but this country, this small little country, and I want to say it was somewhere in Africa, this small little country had their representative there, and he got either a silver or a bronze. But it's the first time anybody from that country had ever gotten an Olympic medal, and it was literally a national day of celebration. So you think you're just shooting something, some guy doing the power walk, and it ain't nobody watching it. It's not that big a deal. But in that country, it was a huge deal. I mean, it was a national holiday because that was the first time anybody had ever gotten a medal of any type from the Olympics. And so you never know, what you're gonna have, what you're gonna see, what you're gonna do. Something that you shoot that impacts something, or people see it somewhere way far away that you never know they've even seen this thing. You take all that for granted sometimes. I'll be sitting eating lunch somewhere with my buddies during the week, and they'll have an NFL network on, and it'll be replaying a ball game, and I'll be looking over my buddy's shoulders while I'm taking a bite of food, and I'll look up and I'll be like, "Oh, that was my shot." And it's just a weird thing. Like you're sitting there going, "Yeah, that was me." You don't think about it, then you do think about it. And you just take it for granted that that's what you do for a living, and that's what you get paid to do. So you do your.
I know. I've had a couple of funny moments where I was watching some stuff with my kids, and old stuff popped on while they were watching, and um, I I was at the game that they were showing, and
Realized it was one of your shots. Yeah.
I didn't say nothing, and then my all of a sudden my son like looked at me and he's like, "Were you at this game?" I'm like, "I was," And he's like, "Well, I see you." I go, "I don't know." And it was some weird game. One of the games with like, like I go, I'm on the field in a red vest. I
Right,
think back then it was a brown vest. I forgot. I think it was the brown. I mean, those Fox, the NFL vests, which
right,
weren't
right,
very
right,
slimming, never been, but they were always different. But
yeah,
was there anything? The funny thing about that Olympics that you made me think about was like Curacao just recently, finally they just qualified for the World Cup and they're
right.
celebrating like it's craziness because it means something. You're right. You never know what you shoot, where it goes, and what that impact will have.
Well,
Even
and
I've said the same thing about like you're on the A show, but like even if you were on a C show or the lower shows that weekend, having the best game out there, and your stuff
right,
can be seen more than the A show because the A show was a blowout, or
right.
sometimes the predictions of what might happen doesn't really happen. So
And that Olympics was also the one with the bombing in the Olympic
yeah,
Park. So that changed everything. After that, everything was different. The way we covered stuff, the way our security going in and out, everything changed literally late that night, early that morning when that happened. So something nobody thought about. The other one I was thinking about that I was the one when the roof collapsed in Minneapolis because our crew was the one that was there. Um, and that was, all of a sudden it changed everything because the roof collapsed. And we sort of had an idea it was going to happen, and that's how we had the footage of that thing giving away with all that snow coming
Yeah, that
in.
kid's like, sorry.
hey, Mario's jumping
Hey,
on. He had
Hey, Michael, how are you?
I'm good, Mario. How you doing, buddy?
Good. I had a question. Who is your favorite driver?
Of all time,
Yeah.
NASCAR driver.
Yes.
Um, it. I'm gonna say probably Richard Petty because I grew up. But my second or one B would be Darrell Waltrip because I not only went and watched him when he was cutting his teeth here in Nashville, but then I got to be good friends with him when he was at Fox. I've gotten to be good friends with him over the years. So he would be right there next to him. But I got to go with the King. I mean, because that's who I grew up watching, and you know, I met him when I was young, got an autograph, the whole thing. So that would be him. That would be who it was. So
Guess who my
so
favorite driver is?
I know who you're going to say. I know who you're going to say. His initials are DT. Huh? As his initials
No,
DT? Oh, it's not.
no,
Don't say Cole
no,
Trickle.
That's what I was
no.
gonna say. I was gonna say Cole Trickle.
Rico Abreu.
Rico Abreu. Oh my
Rico
God.
Abreu. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Rico.
All right. That's my only question. I'll talk to you later, guys. And Michael,
Thanks for
we're going to
jumping on, Mario.
Bennigan's.
Always a
We're
pleasure
going
to
to
have you join
Bennigan's
the
for
call,
lunch on
my
Saturday,
friend.
Michael.
We're
All
going
right.
where?
We're going to Bennigan's for lunch on Sunday, on Saturday. All right. I'll talk to you
All
later.
right, love you, brother. See you. All right.
See you,
Bye.
Mario. Oh my God. Well, you guys have like. So you said you're going to be in Dallas with Mario. You guys are flying out to Dallas. Then you got Thanksgiving in Detroit.
We go straight from Dallas to Detroit on Monday, and then we have an extra day to set up there because there's a halftime show. We do add a few cameras for that show, so it's a little bit bigger. So we have an extra day for setup there. So, but we're
But it
indoor.
would have been much nicer had you been in Dallas this week and then had the Dallas
Yeah,
game.
it would have been nice if we'd had the Dallas Thanksgiving because we could have set up and just been set up already. But yeah, it didn't. It didn't work. It worked out that way one time, I think, maybe twice, but I think once over the years that actually worked out. But no, we'll leave. We'll leave after the game Sunday. Then CBS will be coming in Monday to park their trucks because they're doing the Dallas game next Thursday or whatever. So
I know. Well, Detroit, Dallas. I mean, so then, uh, how, will you take a break after football, or do you go because the first is right? If you go playoffs, you go NASCAR. That Daytona is the first race, right? So would you go? Do you go right into that?
well, yeah, we actually will be. Yeah, we will do. We'll do the NFC Championship, and then the next Sunday I will be doing what's called the Clash, which is sort of their precursor race. It's not a points race, but it's one of their first race of the year, sort of the precursor to Daytona. So I'll go straight there. Then that next weekend is Super Bowl weekend, so the Daytona will be 2 weeks after that. So I'll have a few days home, but then I'll go pretty much straight to Daytona, like the off weekend of the Super Bowl. I'll probably be going to Daytona then. So it won't be much time off. No.
All right, now let's get off the sports. Let's end this talking about stuff that I always love to talk to you about, country music and my man Hee Haw, the show Hee Haw, because I remember this show in the '70s as a kid growing up seeing that stuff. And you had a neighbor, right, that connected you to that show, right?
My neighbor who lived in the townhouse over from me, his name was Sam Lavello. He was the producer of Hee Haw. Hee Haw started in 1969 as a summer replacement show for the Glenn Campbell Good Time Hour. And they ran it on CBS for 2 years. And that's when they were showing Beverly Hillbillies, Green Acres, Gomer Pyle, all the country shows. And in 1971, whoever came in at CBS and took it over said, we're getting rid of all that. So what happened was the company that produced Hee Haw, which ended up at one point being the longest running syndicated show in television history. I think now Wheel of Fortune or something has surpassed it, or Jeopardy. But anyway, he was the producer of Hee Haw, and they took it and syndicated it. And what's so really interesting from a TV standpoint is they went to every CBS affiliate in the country and got them to agree to show Hee Haw at 6 o'clock Central, 7 Eastern on Saturday evenings, which is the time slot it had for CBS. So when it started in syndication in 1971, people thought it was still a CBS network show, but technically it wasn't. I think of all the affiliates in the country, there was one that was an NBC affiliate that carried it. So anyway, he produced Hee Haw for 25, 26 years. And not only that, his son, his youngest son, is the manager of the Arizona Diamondbacks named Torey Lavello. He's the actual manager of the Diamondbacks. So I watched Torey coming up. He got drafted by the Tigers, and I watched him when he was coming up and playing and stuff. So unfortunately, his father, Sam, passed away about a year and a half or 2 years before Torey got that job. But I've seen Torey since then at the winter meetings here in Nashville, and great guy, absolutely great family. It was I had some I saw like George Goober Lindsay in a pair of powder blue pajamas one day. He was staying with my neighbor. They were good friends, and he was going through a divorce. And I went over and knocked on the door, and he opened it, and he just sort of looked at me. And all I could think of was Judy, 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 when he does his Cary Grant impersonation on Andy Griffith. That's all I could think about. I was laughing in my head, but I couldn't laugh out loud. So,
Oh
but
man.
yeah, it was fun. He was a very interesting guy, very smart TV guy. He was a accountant on the Jonathan Winters show is where he started. And then he got into the production part of it. But he taught me a lot about production stuff too that he used to do on that show that was really ingenious. He would do, like when they were relighting to do another scene or whatever, they would shoot like all the cornfield scenes, in 2 days. And then they'd go shoot all the picking and grinning for 2 days. So when they were relighting, instead of hiring stand-ins, he would stand there and stand in while he was going over notes with the productions people. So he got his SAG card and was the stand-in on his own show while they were relighting and stuff. But he knew all these little kind of tidbits and tricks to the trade of how he did his production and stuff. So it was always fun to listen to him.
So what did he pay? He
paid
pay himself as the stand-in
exactly.
too? Is that a way to do that?
And he got a SAG rate too. So he said, why, it was silly to hire other people.
Oh, so that puts him in for residuals, right? So he gets a little piece of the residuals, right?
Well,
I bet you that show's still on that's got to be still on somewhere.
He told me before he passed away, this is what's funny, that if you go to some casinos, you'll see Hee Haw slot machines. He helped write part of the jingle when you hit the button and spin it. So every time one of those spins, he gets like a penny or 2 pennies. He was telling me that he was getting royalties from those. It's hilarious. I mean, it's absolutely hilarious. Some of the stuff he told me and some of the stories he couldn't put in his book. He wrote a book called My Life in the Cornfield, but he was from Buffalo, New York. So he was no more country than you are, So
I love that. I love that. That's the best. The guy with Hee Haw was from New York.
Yep, the guy that produced Hee Haw was from New York. Yes. Yes.
Because there's what? I might be a country boy at heart. I was just born here.
I understand.
I don't know.
Now, listen, listen, I tell people I work with guys from New York. I work with guys from Washington, California. if you got a good heart and you're a good guy, it doesn't matter where you're from, and that's the way I look
That's
at it.
what I was thinking too. Like, I love everything about you, man. We worked only for a couple of years together, man, but we connected, we bonded,
Sure.
we've maintained a friendship. We care about each other's lives, what happens in their lives. We care about each other's success. It's been a wonderful experience to have these types of friendships in these careers, because
Sure.
sometimes, work is work. It is what we do, and it's not
Right.
who we are. But
Right.
it's amazing how the influence of the people that you work with have on you. And I when you talk about being different, like New York and Nashville, whatever, I've always thought about all the things that make people different. It's like recipes for everybody. Everybody has a recipe for chicken. You use
Sure. Sure.
there's a different ingredient everybody has.
Yep.
And
Yep.
to
Yep.
me, your accent or my accent is just one of the ingredients that make up me. It's a
Sure.
beautiful freaking recipe of humanity.
It's a
Everybody
melting
has a
pot.
little bit of
It's a
a
melting pot.
different ingredient.
Yes, exactly. I couldn't agree more. And if we hadn't have gotten this business, we'd have never met. So I'm thankful for all the fellowship relationships I have with people. Everybody I work with, I love to death. I always have. And you make great friendships that last a lifetime, and you get to know the families, and they become your family. Next week when we go to Detroit and do the Thanksgiving Day, that's our TV family. That's who we'll have our dinner with on Wednesday night or Tuesday night or whatever. And that's your road family. And so you care about them and you're concerned if something happens. And just like that poor guy that fell off the end zone in Pittsburgh a few weeks ago. Thank God.
That guy's lucky to be alive, man. He fell
Yeah, but he's got
60
he.
feet, man.
I know he's got a TV family that is going to take care of him, and that's important. And that's when those things sort of come together. That's when
Yeah,
you.
I think they've already raised over 200,000, because a lot of people think because that guy was working for Sunday night football. It was Sunday night
Fletcher. He was
football.
with Fletcher, I think, for Sunday night.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sunday night football. So, and he's working for Fletcher. Everybody thinks he was working for NBC or working for
No,
Fletcher. He really
no,
wasn't. When you
no.
do those jobs, sometimes you're a vendor.
Yep. You're a freelancer. That's
And
what
for
we are.
Fletcher,
We're
that means
independent
you got to have your
contractors.
own kind of insurance, which a lot
Yep.
of guys don't always carry.
Mm-mm.
It's sad because, like, it's you sacrifice a lot for your career and your work. And you know but you're right, the TV family is a big extended family, man. We
Sure
always
is.
look out for each other, and that was very well expressed or visible during the pandemic, man. I mean, reached out to a lot of people during that pandemic. We connected to people because I think a lot of us did or do identify a lot as what we are, because when
Sure.
I'm a camera guy, you know what I mean, that's what we
Yep.
are.
Yep.
But
Yep.
it was, like I said, it's not who you are.
Right.
But it's weird when you're not doing what you do, you're kind of like a little kind of stuck with what do I do when I'm only not being.
Right. I tell people when I'm home during the week, I said my weekend is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's not Saturday, Sunday. So it's sort of weird because a lot of people are working, and so you're not, and it's like you can't hang out with your friends as much because they're working during the week or whatever. And it's just a different schedule, different mindset. But I knew, like I said, my first day was Saturday, Christmas Eve. And I remember telling my mom and some of my family, like, hey, this is the business I'm in, and this is when you work. You work holidays, you work weekends, you know, you have a different schedule than most people. So I had to sort of explain that to them and to myself as well.
Yeah, well, that's the sacrifice of this job. Well, let me end it with this saying, man, I love you. Thank you so much for doing this, Drano. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. I love getting your stories out. And when it comes to Thanksgiving next week, I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I am so thankful for our friendship. I'm so thankful that our paths cross and we still maintain. And I look forward to the next time we get to see each other and I get to yell, Drano! Because that's why I used to yell that. That was my favorite thing at the end of every strike, to be in the compound and everybody's
Yeah.
exhausted and doesn't want to do anything. And I would just scream just because I was just wanted to get to the car. It was just,
You
I
want to
just
get out
love
of
to do
there. I
that because
know.
no, but it was part of it. At
I
first, it was
know.
probably out of the fact that I wanted to get to the car and get out of there. But then it was
Well,
just that I just would love to remind myself, how much I love working with you, man. It was just always a pleasure to work with you, and it was a pleasure to talk to you. I will say this about Thanksgiving. You talked about that first job being for you Christmas Eve. My first job in sports was a Thanksgiving. I knew I was doing studio stuff, and I had an opportunity. I got the call from the local crew Barry Fiak. He goes, "Hey, I got a high school football championship in Brooklyn. It was like a 4 a.m. call time because it was like an 11 a.m. game in
Right.
Brooklyn." I'm like, I'll still make it home for turkey and dessert. So I'm like, I'll do it. I did it. I got up super early. I did it.
Right.
And, it was the start of me, it was the first time I had a chance to work hard, big hard camera, put it together and do all the things. I was mostly doing utility at that point, but that was my first, you know, big job. So, Drano, thank you, my friend. Best of luck to you. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Have a great show. Say hi to everybody. Tell Russo I say what's up. Tell him, give me a call when he comes to New York. Maybe I'll be one of your high end zones when you come in here. But I'm not. I had 3 or 4 local games this year. I did a couple of CBS ones, but I've been doing studio for this season, and I'm kind of liking it. So I might stay there. But
Oh,
so don't.
listen, Hardy, listen, thank you so much for having me. And I hope whoever's listening got a little bit of a laugh out of it and some insight into something that may be different from what they know. I don't know, but I love you like a brother. And thank you for having me. And I hope this show keeps doing well for you, pal.
Well, it is. I mean, I'll put these out. I'll share the information. I'm building a little bit of a learning library because I also don't want what we've learned to get lost. You know what I mean? There's so much knowledge that was passed on to me by so many people,
Sure.
and in this new world of communication and everything else, and there's not. I just
know.
want some of that to kind of, maybe these stories can live on. People will watch these things. I'll put them out there, and people will hear how we did these things, and maybe when they are watching them years and years down the line, they're doing it differently, and they're like, "Wow, I can't
Right.
believe these guys did all that stuff that way."
Right, exactly. No, it's a great thing, and yeah, and if they can learn anything at all, then it's been worth it, And I appreciate you doing it and having me on, and I can't wait to see you again soon here, pal. Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I loved listening to the journey of your career, and your journey is far from over, man. I'm sure there'll be more stories to tell in the future. Hopefully, if this thing grows and I'll be doing this for years and years to come and having fun doing it, I'll have
Right.
you back on and we'll talk more and have some more fun.
Anytime you need me to do anything, Hardy, I'm there for you, pal. And
All right,
you
brother.
and
Be
your
good, man.
family have
Safe
a great.
travels.
You have a great Thanksgiving too, buddy.
Thanks, pal.
All right, talk to you later.
All right. Take care, everybody. That's the end of Crew Call Live for this week, Thursday, 7 p.m. live. I am working on a Crew Call Live special, December 4th. I think it's December 4th, but I'm sure it is. Is that the right date? Let me double check. Is that a Thursday? I think it is. December 4th. It will be at 5 p.m. December 4th, live at 5. I'm doing a special with the president of the IATSE 100, Joel Salkowitz, the A1 of the Yes Productions on Nets, Nets on Yes Productions. And so we'll be doing a live Crew Call Live on Thursday, December 4th, 5 p.m. with Joel Salkowitz. All right, buddy. Be good. Take care.